Welcome, everybody, to a special call Rocky Mountain SABR Zoom meeting. This was rather hastily put together, and but we thought it was quite necessary and important for us to get together as baseball fans and students of the game to discuss the monumental events of the last several days here in Colorado. So I'm just going to kind of set the stage, and this is largely going to be an open forum. We would very much like as many of you to participate and contribute as possible, as you feel comfortable. But we encourage you to join in this discussion. We're up to 30 people now. This is without a speaker. You folks are the speakers. But obviously, everybody is aware of what has taken place. Nolan Arenado, just for the record, is a St. Louis Cardinal now. He was traded by the Colorado Rockies to the St. Louis Cardinals. The Cardinals take on 149 or $150 million of his remaining 6 years on his contract. The Colorado Rockies will pay the Cardinals $51 million in order to get the deal done, in order to even do the deal at all. We received back 5 players, from the Cardinals, only one of whom has Major League experience. So Nolan Arenado, born and raised with the Rockies, if you will. Nolan Arenado, he of 8 consecutive Gold Gloves, of 4 consecutive Platinum Gloves, he of 5 Silver Slugger Awards. Nolan Arenado has led the National League in home runs twice and led the National League in RBIs 3 times. So those are the basics. Those are the facts. And I know a lot of you want to chime in here. So we are just going to open this up and let her fly. Now, was it Brian Werner? You just said you got an interesting letter as a season ticket holder. Is it, nod your head yes, if that's the case. All right. So Alex, why don't we begin by starting with Brian, and if you want to speak, whenever you want to speak, just indicate it to Alex, and Alex will control that. And we're just going to let this thing roll. But this will be an open forum discussion on Nolan Arenado and the Colorado Rockies. And ironically, we have chapter meetings once a year, and we title them "The State of the Rockies." So think of this as another meeting of the state of the Rockies. Okay, and with that, let's turn it over to Brian Werner.
And just before I do that, Paul, if anybody wants to speak, in order for me to be able to know that, I can't see everybody, there's an electronic hand raise function available through the Zoom account. So send me the electronic hand wave and it will pop up on my screen, and I will then be able to unmute you. So, or you can submit a question in the chat box if you just want something stated. Paul or I could read that. But if you want to speak, please do an electronic hand raise. Don't just raise your hand. I can't see everybody. So just do an electronic hand raise, please. Thank you. So Brian, I'm asking you to unmute yourself now.
You got it. Actually didn't get an email, or what I got was a phone call late this afternoon from the ticket office. I had sent an email to them basically just saying, this is a total fiasco. I will be calling to see how I can get my refund for my season tickets. And let me just set this up. I'm a season ticket holder from day one, all the way back at that Currigan Hall thing that we had. My priority number now is well under 1,000. I think it's under 500. I went to the first game in New York City. I've been to every opening day. And this I explained to the gentleman who called me. And the first thing I said was, I don't want your job. But he did call me back this afternoon after I had sent that email. And so I gave him some kudos for calling me back, for having the gall to call me back. Upset, I think we all are, and I won't go into all of the discussions, but it was interesting. I think they're doing damage control as best they can right now. What he offered me was a 75% refund off the top, leave 25% in my account. I don't even have to use it this year. I can pick games when I want to, and they'll pull it off of that, what's left, that quarter that's left. And if I don't go to any games this year, I don't go to any games, but I remain with my priority number. So as I reflected on this, as I said, damage control, I think they're doing everything they can to not lose season ticket holders right now. I told the guy I appreciated the call. I would think about it. So I didn't say hell no right off, which was my first instinct. And I'll leave it at that, Paul.
Okay. Who's next? Anybody raising their hand?
David Barry has.
Okay, David.
Hold on. Hold on.
Hold it, David.
There we go. Gotcha.
He still looks like he's on mute.
I just asked to unmute him.
I got him. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. You know, when I've been watching television, watching MLB, and you know, at the end of the day, I could only come up with this as a complete organizational failure. And all of us on this Zoom call have been around baseball all our lives. I don't remember another organization in baseball that has had this complete failure and lack of leadership, particularly with the general manager. And I got to put a lot of this on the ownership. I don't know the ownership. I've only lived in Colorado for 6 years. I come out of the Walter O'Malley regime and Peter O'Malley and the Dodger organization, where I'm a big fan of. But, you know, this is going to be studied and analyzed, in my opinion, for years to come among baseball people, on how you can let this foolishness happen. And, you know, the GM, in my opinion, when they were on TV, today's Wednesday, I guess it was Monday morning. I mean, he should have been fired on the spot, in my opinion. There's no reason for him to be there. If I was, I ran a pretty large company before I retired. If this had happened on my watch, I got to tell you, and I owned the baseball franchise, Jeff would be gone. And I think the owner even mentioned that, you know, that he ought to fire himself, or he thought about firing himself. It was his words, not mine. But to have Jeff continue to run this organization is just pure reckless abandonment on the ownership of the Rockies. And it's pathetic. As a fan of the Rockies, I just don't understand how you can do that. How you can pay $51 million. You're giving the.
I think you froze up there, David.
Star player to go away. Yeah, you can. Are you right?
We can hear you now.
Yeah, but to pay somebody $51 million for your star player to go away, you know, just makes absolutely no sense to me. I'm upset, and you know, it's going to take a long time for us to get our heads around, you know, something like this to even happen. And even when the relationship broke down, what is it? I guess a year and a half ago, it started to break down maybe 2 years ago, and allow that to happen with your main player. I mean, something went wrong. Like I said, you can analyze this. I don't even believe we've begun to analyze it, but I think when we get into the heart of the matter, I think we're going to be shocked as to exactly what happened behind the scenes, how you allowed it to happen. I feel for the gentleman that was right before me, longtime Rocky fan, original season ticket holder, and it's upsetting. It really is. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth, guys.
Okay. Who's
Kurt Wells would like to speak.
our Vice President, Kurt Wells?
Okay, I think that this kind of puts an exclamation point on something I've suspected all along, and that's that I think Dick Monfort makes a lot of the calls on player personnel decisions. And I think that this really exemplifies, and when you see that we haven't gotten rid of Bridich with the track record he's had, which has been really weak. I mean, I don't need to go into it. Everybody on the call knows, but I think that this just makes me believe even more the reason he keeps Bridich is he allows him to make those decisions. And, you know, I'd like to know yeah, others' feelings on this issue, but I felt that way a long time, but I just absolutely feel like that's the only way you can justify the reason the Bridich is still around.
I will just say I concur with Kurt. I feel that this shows that the owner has taken on a more active role, or maybe recently or just historically, but it definitely certifies that the owner, Dick Monfort, and the Monfort family probably has a lot of say in personnel decisions. So
Well, I think the only way out at this point is to take that money they've saved and spend it on other players. But I'd be amazed if that happens. But you know, if you went out and you signed 3 or 4 players in the $4 to $5 million range and at least beefed up the team, it would bring a little goodwill back to people. But I don't see them spending anything on anybody right now. But Manny Randawa, who put something on today that I've studied a little bit on about all the free agents that are still available with their wars next to them. There aren't a whole lot that jump right out as people that are going to fall into that range that we can afford that you really want very bad. I've got a few that I like, but you know, I don't see them going out and spending much money either.
Who's next?
thank you, Kurt. We have Patrick Lyons now.
Mr. Hare.
Yeah, Kurt, your assessment's pretty much right on. This is not really a decision that Jeff Bridich made. He was told to make it because it was based on finances. They don't even save any money really this year because they're paying Arenado's contract. So, you know, the problems that they have with the team, I don't think can really be solved through free agency, at least not this year. It has to be, you know, it would be nice if they spent some of the $149 million they saved on an analytic department, because that can certainly go a long way and almost pay for itself. The interesting thing that, you know, one of the biggest issues I think with the Rockies, people keep saying they need a team president. And I think that's absolutely right, because, you know, right now there are 2 votes. There's Dick Monfort and Jeff Bridich. Jeff Bridich is the baseball guy, and Dick Monfort is not. So if Monfort feels one way and Bridich goes the other way, well, that's a tie. Tie is going to go to the owner. But if you actually had a team president that could go ahead and make actual real baseball decisions, it'd be 2 to 1, and say, hey, Dick, look, we kind of have to do things a certain way. This is the industry standard. You know, we can't keep making these crazy choices. He would be outruled, and he would be forced into doing something other than what he actually wanted. And so it's a shame that this has been totally bungled in such a major way. Obviously, Bridich has some responsibility for putting that opt-out in, which totally undercuts a lot of Arenado's value, because are the Cardinals acquiring a guy that has 6 years left on his deal or 1 year? Well, they're only going to offer up for enough for a guy that's getting 1 year. At least that's how they're going to try to sell it to Monfort. And it's bungled all the way around. They could have done this at the beginning of the offseason. Maybe the Mets would have been in on them as opposed to being in on Francisco Lindor. So now you've got the Mets as a possible suitor. Like, you know, the offseason's is winding down to a degree. And so who's left? Who's really looking to, you know, add guys at this point? So just completely bungled all the way around. But this is a Monfort thing. Jeff Bridich is the 6th longest tenured GM in all of baseball right now. Think about that, how mind-blowing that is. And yet I can guarantee you he will never be a general manager anywhere else ever again when his time is up with Colorado. That's my time.
If I
Thank you,
may,
Patrick.
if I
Yeah, Paul.
may, interject here, in trying to understand what's happened, this is not like one major mistake to me. This is now one mistake in a pattern of multiple years that's gone on now. Now, I'm going to try to be cautious and at the same time candid. So as many of you know, I was an employee of the club for 25 years, and I know Jeff Bridich and Charlie Monfort pretty well. But in all honesty, from what I have seen and what I've observed over time, is there are some bad things in place that are almost immovable. Dick Monfort's a decent guy. He is a down-to-earth person, but he's not a baseball person in the sense that the game and its history flow through his veins like it does through everybody on this call. You're all in SABR because you love the game and its essence. I will give you an example of that. I was on my anniversary lunch with 10 or 15 people, and Dick was there and a couple other people. Once a year, you have in the anniversary of the month you were hired, and the Ian Stewart, DJ LeMahieu trade had just happened, and the subject came up, and Dick was analyzing the trade, and Dick said, "Well, they got these guys, and we got these guys, and oh yeah, we also got some French guy in the trade." This was an example, and you know what I'm talking about, David John LeMahieu. This was a glimpse into Dick's baseball expertise. Some French guy. Well, the French guy went on to glory in New York, and I believe on Jeff Bridich's side, what happened there, because everybody knows, how do you let a guy go who just walk away, who is A, an all-star, B, a gold glover, 3, a batting champion, 4, great in the clubhouse, a great teammate, 5, 30 years old, 6, oh, I went from letters to numbers, didn't I? I'm sorry. In relative terms, he didn't cost a fortune. The Yankees ended up paying him identical money to what he was going to get in Denver. And I believe that it's my theory that the seeds of this were planted because DJ LeMahieu was about to go to arbitration. And they get to the room, and before they sit down at the arbitration table, Bridich and LeMahieu go out in the hallway, and they settle, and they never have a formal arbitration hearing. But I think that in Jeff's mind, he said, okay, you know, I'm going to settle here. We're going to do this. But at my earliest opportunity, I'm getting rid of you, DJ LeMahieu. Well, you know, I thought during this 2017 season, when rumors started about DJ LeMahieu leaving the Rockies, that was the first red flag for me about what was going on. And then there have been other things, the three-headed monster of Brian Shaw, Jake McGee, and Wade Davis. Wade Davis had one good year where he had 43 saves, and then he exploded. And then there was Ian Desmond, and then Daniel Murphy, and the pattern here, the track record gets dimmer and darker as we go. But I think that there's a dynamic there, the Monfort-Bridich dynamic. I think Dick, and knowing Dick, he said publicly, and he's always valued loyalty. But in my opinion, he overvalues loyalty. That's why Jeff is now in his 7th year as the Rockies GM. That's plenty of time to turn a ship around and get in the right direction. And that simply is not the case. So it's maddening. And, you know, and I've seen random comments about people suggesting columnists and people, letters to the editor, and saying, the Rockies, and this will be very depressing, the Rockies should, the Monfort should sell the Rockies, because what the situation now, this ain't working. And Dick has two sons who work for the Rockies. One is vice president of corporate partnerships, and the other one is in baseball operations and player development. And his two sons are in their 30s now, and I think they are going to inherit the team, and I don't see the Monforts ever selling. So that's why this bad stuff may be locked in place. So I fervently hope I'm mistaken. But anyway, let's turn it over to somebody else.
Sure, we have Greg Petty now.
Thanks for those comments, Paul. That really helps me think about things. Some of you may know that my loyalties can't be shaken to be a Cubs fan, but of course, I'm a secondary Rockies fan, and I like to take an analytical view, and I've tried to look at this every possible way, and there really is no good way to look at what just happened. And before I go on to my comments, I'd like somebody, if they know, to tell me how that money is going to be distributed to the Cardinals, or if Aaron would drop out, leave the Cardinals, which I don't think is going to happen, would those, it's going to be distributed. It's not going to be $35 million this year. I don't think it's going to be parsed out. But if anybody knows how that works out, I'd love to know.
Would we be wise to turn to Manny Rendawa at this point, who may be able to answer those questions?
Is
If
Manny
Manny could raise his hand, I can unmute him.
Yeah, I'll do that, and then I'll go on with my comments. I'd love to hear this.
All right, let's get Manny on.
He hasn't raised his hand yet.
Manny, unmute.
I found him. Here we go.
He's still muted. All right,
You guys hear me?
Manny Rendawa, you're on the air.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So I believe, Greg, the answer to your question is that they're going to pay 15 million of the 35 million for 2021
Okay.
this year, and then the other 20 million is deferred, which I believe it means that if Arenado was to opt out, the Cardinals would have had him for free in 2021. So I think that's how it's structured, which doesn't help the look of this trade. As far as the trade goes and what's been said so far, I think Paul's right. I think this ownership and this GM are locked in place. I don't think that there's going to be any change there. This is a team that's in a division that is ruled now by two juggernauts. The Dodgers certainly, and then the Padres are rising as well. So I think as far as being competitive, it was already a long shot. Now it's even longer. And the way they've been handling off seasons in recent past, there's not much for a Rockies fan. I don't think there's very much hope that anything's going to change in the next few years. I think that I'm happy for Nolan. I really am, because he needs to play on a winner. That's a generational talent. That guy should have the chance to win. So for the idea of blaming Nolan Arenado for wanting out, and Dick saying I anguished many nights trying to figure out why. I think it's pretty obvious why. And it's just that if you're going to sign a guy to a long-term contract and then not do anything to improve the team around him, then obviously he's going to want out. He's not going to stay in his prime forever. He's 29. He's going to go into his age 30 season. And he's with his buddy Paul Goldschmidt at the Corners in St. Louis, great baseball town. Continues the tradition of the Rockies sending people to St. Louis. Larry Walker was one, and he got to a World Series with them that same year. Matt Holliday wasn't directly from the Rockies, but he became a Cardinal. And Matt talked with Nolan, and I'm sure Paul Goldschmidt talked with Nolan about coming over there and waiving his no trade clause. But I mean, it's kind of seems like a no-brainer for him to go to a team that he makes into a contender. If they already weren't a contender for the division title, they are now. Certainly a favorite. And so I think that, and the Rockies really, you know, if I'm the Rockies, I'm shopping Story right now, because he's going to be a free agent after 21. And if you hold on to him, which they said they think they're going to into 2021, and you know you're not going to win, every day the clock's ticking. Every day that goes by, the value on a return for Trevor Story goes down, because he's going to be a free agent at the end. And so certainly he could sign an extension. Nolan has already talked about signing an extension with St. Louis. But Trevor Story is the next guy to escape this. And that's really what it comes down to, escaping this dysfunction here. And it's bad news all around if you're a Rockies fan, but that's just how it is. So
Let's get back to Greg Petty, because we had just got to Manny to get the details of the contract. So if we could.
I
Thank you,
love
Manny.
Manny's comments, and let me say that Manny was one of the things I was going to say. Is the unfortunate thing is that the general manager, if he's competent, will get rid of Story at a high price, because the unfortunate thing is they didn't need to get rid of Nolan this year. If they held Monfort's comment like, well, it was Nolan's choice. First of all, that's absurd. It's the club's choice. And then he says, well, if he opts out at the end of the year, which was not a given, but if he did, they'd one, get a draft choice. Two, they'd have all that money that they just gave to the Cardinals back. They would have had Nolan for free and $16 million more. Which would you rather have? A high draft choice, $16 million, and a year of Nolan. And you'd almost certainly then have Nolan's Colorado Rockies hat on when he goes into the Hall of Fame, as opposed to maybe he could be a Cardinal, or maybe he gets no hat at all now when he goes into the Hall of Fame.
And
So,
Greg, just to clear one item you said about them getting a draft choice for Nolan. If he did opt out, the only way they could do that is they put a qualifying offer on him. So that's what
okay, right.
Sorry.
You mean if he had just chosen to
If he chose to opt
end the
out,
contract?
they've chosen to opt out the contract, then he'd become a free agent. But the Rockies, if that's available, could put a qualifying offer on him. So if any team signed him to a certain threshold, there's different thresholds of his next contract, they'd be compensated accordingly via draft pick.
Okay, seems to me they already have the qualifying offer of $33 million on that contract.
Oh, I didn't see that.
So to go on, I with Story though, since he'll be leaving the team, and why would he sign a contract given what Bradich has done both to Tulowitzki now and Arenado in offending their players as they leave? Bradich should have been fired for public relations reasons, if nothing else. He brutalized.
Well, I'll say
players.
this about Trevor. When he said, I'm a little frustrated, to be honest, that's like red flag, red flag. That's like Trevor going off.
Yeah.
Because Trevor is so down to earth, and, he's very, he's not a look at me guy, but for him to say a little frustrated, to be honest, in Story ease, I think that means I've got one foot out the door.
Yeah. Well, they need to deal him, because they will get nothing for him, and presume, if they got off to a hot start, maybe they think they can contend. They do have a decent pitching staff. It is interesting to me that the one saving grace of Bradich's regime has been the number of players he's brought up to the major leagues. The counterpoint to that is he's got nothing in the minors now. And I mean, Manny, Patrick, where do the Rockies rank? 29th, 30th in terms of minor league strength?
They're like 27th or 28th. Depends on, if you look at our stuff, the MLB pipeline, or if you look at Baseball America or whatever, but they're toward the very bottom. Let's just say that. And look, you're a team that as far as morale, you've just sent off a guy. Let's just put it this way. MLB Network had their top 10 right now program finished yesterday. It was a series of shows where they go position by position. Second base, the top guy is DJ LeMahieu. Shortstop, their top guy was Trevor Story. Third base, the only reason their top guy wasn't Nolan wasn't fighting for the top spot was because of his bum shoulder in 2020. So all of those guys are Rockies in 2018. And for that to turn into what it has, where by the end of this next season, none of them will be around. They took a window and they shut it pretty fast, and they didn't and in their farm system, the farm system has given you its gems. It's given you story. It's given you Freeland. There's nothing left there. They haven't done a good job of restocking there, and I've never seen anything like it. There's no hope here.
And by all assessments, I listened to Jim Callis, who maybe many of you know is sort of a prospect guru. And his assessment of the people they got were low to middling prospects, bottom of the rotation for Gomber. So he might be a major league pitcher, but not a great one. They got a third baseman that he says might make the majors and be a starter, but not any great shakes. The other three, he couldn't even give that to. And so you got nothing by objective analysis. And again, Breitich doesn't care about the fans or insulting the fans. He doesn't get along with the players. Monfort doesn't seem to care how he deals with the fans. And Monfort, I think, has a tenuous grip on baseball reality. Bye-bye.
Should we,
He has a lot more to do with the decisions that are made than people realize. His thumb's on the scale. And so Breitich gets a lot of the heat, but I think Monfort has a lot more to do with it than people realize. And if they understood that he's such a big part of it, I think they would, you wonder why Breitich is still around. The only reason I can think of is it works for Dick. Breitich, that whole relationship works.
yeah,
He chose Breitich over over Arenado.
Paul, we've got a lot of people raising their
yeah,
hands. So
let's work some other folks in here. Does anybody out there have anything to say on behalf of Jeff Breitich or Dick Monfort? Okay.
So next up is Robert Gower.
Where is he? Robert Gower.
Hello, how's everyone doing?
Boy wonder. Okay.
From obviously, I don't have as much invested in the team as probably a lot of you, and I haven't been following them as closely for as long of a time. But this definitely seems something organizational or with the owner. And I want to pass blame onto Jeff, and he's even kind of acknowledged I'm the one to blame, but I just don't see that as a possibility. Being a current math major, I don't see how their analytics department has shrunk from 6 down to reportedly 2 people now. One, I think they lost their main guy that had been there for 8 years, Trevor Patch, who we had come speak to our analytics club. That doesn't make any sense to me. I see sports is ultimately a business, and owning a team is ultimately a business, yet you still want to care and you want to show that you care about your fans and your players. And I don't see that at all with the team. I don't understand the trade, the prospects that we got back. For those of you who maybe remember, Sunshine and I did a project last year for SABR Day, just kind of on defensive metrics. And one of the guys we mentioned we would have liked to seen was Harrison Bader, the center fielder for the Cardinals. I think that would have been really interesting. He's only owed $2 million this year. He has 2 years of arbitration. That would have been an interesting fit, if anything, to get big league talent back. And then I also want to say, yes, we are paying Nolan's contract this year. So somewhat you could say that St. Louis is getting him for free this year, but they are still giving up prospects. And prospects can always be iffy, but let's hope something pans out, or let's hope the best for them. And I'm also kind of glad that I'm coming out of college soon. And, if I move to another city, I definitely won't be opposed to picking up a different fan base at this point.
We'll miss you. Thank you,
ahead.
Robert.
We had me.
Next up is Ken Reed.
Ken Reed.
Hey, gentlemen.
Ladies
Hello,
too.
sir.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, sorry.
Quite a few ladies on here. Thank you.
I think obviously the trade itself is pathetic, especially throwing in the 51 million on top of not getting one of their top 8 or 10 prospects, depending on what you look at. But I think the problem is Bridett shouldn't have been there for this trade. I mean, I think it was Tom Verducci or Keith Law or someone analyzed Bridett's last 12 free agent signings and concluded 11 of them were bust, with only Mark Reynolds at 2.5 million or something being acceptable. So I don't know how you can be a general manager with a record in personnel moves under 500, but to squander that much money, and the money he wasted on those free agent signings is part of the reason why they're in the financial trouble they are, which led to, besides the pandemic, led to the financial budget crisis they're in now. So, I mean, I think Bridett is a big reason they even got in this crunch. And regarding the trade itself, I haven't heard anyone explain why they wouldn't just wait to the trade deadline. See if they start off hot, keep them to the trade deadline. There has to be a better haul at the trade deadline when teams in contention are trying to get a big bat for the run. This seemed like the worst possible time to make the trade to start with. And another way to look at Bridett is what he's done to the farm system. When you've got one of the bottom farm systems, that speaks a lot. Besides his terrible free agent signings, terrible farm system. Someone today had the Rocks lineup in terms of projected WAR as the worst lineup in baseball for this coming season. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And Monfort is afraid to fire guys. I mean, Dan O'Dowd had to fire himself. Tracy had to fire himself. I don't know what it is that he thinks Bridett is the smartest guy he's ever met. He might have the biggest ego, but it's like everyone has said, it's totally dysfunctional. Ever since Kelly McGregor left and not having a president and having Monfort play president, it's just a joke. That's
the one thing I will add on those prospects, Ken, is that if you look at the list where they slid into the Rockies now, they are all those, there are 3 that were in the top 30 of the Cardinals. Those same 3 are in basically the same slots that they're now with the Rockies, according to MLB.com. I know Baseball America might have a different ranking, but they're now basically in the same slots they were when they were with the Cardinals. So I agree with you. I don't think the Rockies farm system is that strong, but an argument can be made where these guys coming over from the Cardinals, which from a reputational standpoint, I don't know the Cardinals that well, maybe someone does from their farm system. These guys, if they're in the same slots now as the Rockies under those top 30, I think that's pretty good for the Rockies. That shows maybe they're not top heavy. They don't have a lot of exciting prospects like top 100 in baseball, but they've got some solid guys. They've really got some solid players. Granted, they're down in the lower minors, Grand Junction, a lot of guys coming over from the Latin American academies, but they've got a lot of talent. And I think by those 3 now sliding in to this virtually the same slots in the Rockies top 30 shows that, the Rockies have some pretty good talent.
Who put them in the same slot?
I think it was MLB.com.
Okay. Well, and I think as MLB Pipeline top 100, the Rockies have two players.
Something like that. Yeah, MLB Pipeline. Sorry. Yep.
Rollison and is it Veen or Zine or
Vreen?
Yeah, those are the only 2 Rockies in the top 100. And obviously none of these Cardinals they got were in the top 100. So for the best a Hall of Fame player, the best third baseman of all time, maybe by the time he's done, you get no top 100 prospects and you pay them $51 million. and you pay him to play for the Cards this year.
Oh, I agree. I agree with that statement.
Great.
That was not a good trade. But I think for the guys that got over, they're comparable. It looks like, at least according to MLB Pipeline, to the Rockies top 30.
Maybe they didn't have enough time to analyze it yet.
One quick story, if I may, about, and you can interpret this as you wish. When Ian Desmond was out there and the Rockies were pursuing him, nobody else was in the game. The Rockies were bidding against themselves.
Yeah.
And our good friend and SABR member and board member, Dan Evans, knew Ian Desmond very well. And while this was going on, Desmond called Dan Evans and said, Dan, the Rockies, I don't know what the Rockies are doing. They're bidding against themselves. And Dan's advice to Ian Desmond was, enjoy the ride. Next.
Did
Thank you, Ken.
Dan leave some comments on this trade to share?
Dan unfortunately could not participate. Dan Evans, current board member, could not participate. He has a class he teaches on Thursday nights, so he sends his best. And he's expressed some comments through the board that he definitely felt it was disappointing as a past GM. I'm sure if you can connect with him on via Twitter, he might share some comments there.
One other quick note, I think Jeff Brydish has gotten some extra shelf life because of a couple of things. Dick's infatuation with his Harvard degree, and the fact that the Rockies did go to the postseason 2 years in a row for the first time in franchise history in 17 and 18. That bought Brydish more time in Dick's mind. Okay.
Thank you, Ken. Next up is Chris Cohn.
So first off, kind of like Robert, I don't have nearly as much invested in the team as a lot of people on this call. I was born after the Rockies were created.
Wow.
So for me, not having a team doesn't exist. The Rockies have always been there for me. So I've been able to have that experience of, I hate them because I don't have to worry about losing them. Even after Monfort sent the supposedly drunk email a few years ago when I believe I was in middle school, I was like, oh yeah, he's just joking because the Rockies have always been there. But as someone who has studied sports management and actually taken Dan's class to learn how to become a GM, my professor for sports management at my university, he's a baseball scholar and speaks every year at the Hall of Fame symposium. Even he is left speechless by how dysfunctional the Rockies are right now. When a former professor emails you asking what's going on with the team, it's a sign that it's something so bad when someone who studies baseball and teaches baseball for a living emails you saying, what's going on with this team? I don't understand. People have always asked me, who's your favorite team? I always joked, whoever will give me a job first. Right now, it actually kind of feels like that because Rockies have shown they care only about money and the bottom line. And in my generation, there's an idea that Monfort's only owned team for social status in Colorado, which every day, especially after this trade, seems to be more and more true, that he doesn't care about team, he doesn't care about baseball, he wants the money and the status.
Very true. Thank you, Chris. Next up is Mac Klaus.
Yeah, thank you. I'm curious about something that I didn't hear about at all in any of the write-ups that came from all of this. During the off season, we heard all these rumors about things like the Cubs were going to trade Chris Bryant for Arenado, and each team would get rid of a potential free agent. And then we heard that the Braves were in contention with the Cardinals, and the Braves obviously have a lot of really good young pitchers. Whatever happened to those supposed teams' interest in, and did the Rockies have any other offer besides this one from St. Louis?
Does anyone that's in the know, like Patrick or Manny, want to take that? Patrick has raised his hand.
Yeah, I don't really know, who they were negotiating with entirely. Atlanta was definitely one of those teams as it got closer in the final weeks, besides St. Louis. I think it was Chicago, and Greg Petty's obviously following the situation pretty closely. They've actually been looking to cut payroll. So, I mean, they traded Yu Darvish away. They didn't pick up the final year of arbitration for Kyle Schwarber. It was only about $10 million. So they were kind of looking to cut payroll, and they would have been adding payroll had they traded Bryant for Arenado. So I think that ultimately wasn't a fit. And I guess the question that, to throw out to everybody else is, this, as historically bad as this deal is in more ways than one. I mean, bottom line, you have a once in a generation Hall of Fame player, and you did not get back a top 100 prospect. It's absurd. But would you have felt better if you had gotten back a top 100 prospect? Or I don't think this guy's a top prospect, but what if you got Dustin May and a bunch of middling prospects like they did get from the Cardinals from the Dodgers? Would you be okay with Arenado going to LA and torturing you a bunch, but your haul, your return is that much more, so that when the time does come for your ducks to line up and those prospects to develop, you're ready to take them on? Would you sign up for something like that? Just curious.
Yeah, that was one of the things that they some writers said that the Rockies didn't want to trade with the Dodgers, even though the Dodgers have a lot of really good young prospects. And the issue with the Dodgers is the Rockies are so far apart from the Dodgers now that even if you remove Arenado, they're still going to be far apart from the Dodgers. And maybe getting May and some other younger, they've got hitters and they've got pitchers that are young prospects that they're not going to be able to fit them in. Those guys aren't going to be happy staying around behind all of the stars that are on the Dodgers, and go for it. It's better than what we got.
Justin Turner is a free agent, and I understand the Rockies are looking for third baseman. So
Turnabout is fair play, right, Paul?
that's right.
Manny has a question or wishes to speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to say on the question of whether there were other offers and what was the spectrum of, options for the Rockies. The only thing I can think of is this was a salary dump, and so that really, it depends on what the other team is willing to absorb out of the $199 million that's left on that contract. And the Rockies paying $50 million is not a good look, but overall, oftentimes what happens is you take on one of the, I thought maybe they'd get like Carpenter or somebody who has a big contract that is kind of weighing the club down in return. But they didn't do that. They just went straight cash. But honestly, I thought they would have had to have eaten more of the contract, whether that's by taking on another aging veteran contract or whatever it might have been. So I imagine that if the Cubs were involved, or if any of these other clubs were involved, everybody called him. Who wouldn't call on Nolan Arenado? So everybody does that. It just depends on what they're willing to, how much they're willing to take on of a huge contract for a guy who can opt out after 21, had a rough year. I don't think the shoulder's a problem, but you could argue that it's kind of iffy. So I think that's probably what was involved there.
What's kind of funny, Manny, and I agree with what you said, that it was a salary dump, is that Monfort also said, he was going to opt out at the end of the year, so it was better than a draft pick, or he made us trade him. Is that, if that's true, then they spent $50 million on this package of middling prospects. It just doesn't make any sense any which way you look at it.
Any which way you look at it, Dexter Fowler's to the Angels, by the way. That's
Wow.
what John Heyman is reporting.
Breaking news.
So the Rockies probably could have had Dexter Fowler. They probably could have taken him back, but
yeah, they could have taken that. Actually, Dexter Fowler would have been the ideal for the Cardinals, probably the ideal one to send this way. But Dexter has a no trade clause, and I don't think he wanted to come back here. So
the other thing that could signal to, Manny, is if they could have probably, instead of giving the Cardinals $51 million, if let's say they would have taken Fowler's contract and whatever, they could have worked it out. Maybe Matt Carpenter, then they would have only had to pay $30 million, and they're paying Matt Carpenter $20 million this year. So it's still $50 million in exchange. But if you get Fowler or Carpenter,
You get a player.
you get a player, and your team is a little bit better. So the question is, do the Rockies think maybe they're actually trying to tank? Do they not want to get better? Do they
It's hard
want
to
tank?
it's hard to really say what the Rockies are thinking about because nothing they do makes sense.
They're
So
bipolar.
there's just no baseline that you can't really, somebody else mentioned it earlier. How many of Jeff Bride's moves have been good? So if maybe he's just not good at this stuff,
Manny and Patrick, I will tell you though, if it was true that the Dodgers, there was a few reports about this, the Dodgers, were definitely called for the Rockies about Nolan. And if they did offer a package like Patrick was suggesting, maybe a Dustin May level, Gavin Lux, and Monfort said he just will not trade them to the Dodgers.
Yeah, that's terrible.
I'm sorry. In my level, that's baseball management malpractice.
Well,
You're more concerned about a fan's emotions response to a player being in your division than making your team better. I'm sorry.
Somebody else said it earlier. You're not competing with the Dodgers anyway.
No, you're not. No.
If you're gonna be able to make your team better, like you said, Alex, making your team better, you do that. Sometimes it's as simple as, I see this on Twitter sometimes, this refrain: get good players. It's not that complicated. When you have choices on the table, take the best player. When you have choices on the table on where to send your superstar that you couldn't win for, get the best package you can, even if it's the Dodgers.
I agree.
I'd like to throw out an idea here that people can respond to also, kind of larger picture this in terms of the Rockies and what's going on. Don't forget, we came out of, 2020 was a 60-game season, tremendous revenue loss for the teams, and Dick Monfort, pleaded poverty about not having any ticket revenue. But we don't even know now what the 2021 season is going to look like exactly. And at the end of 2021, the collective bargaining agreement is up, and baseball is the best of all sports at killing the golden goose. So what does the future look like for the game, the next 12 to 24 months, and for the Rockies? How does that impact what's left of the Rockies? So can we get someone that has yet to participate?
Well, the hand raises, there's no more hand raises, but we have a lot of chats in the chat room.
Okay.
So
One thing I'll say real quick is I actually thought that after COVID-19 went crazy last spring, I thought, you know what, if the Rockies want to get out from underneath the Arenado deal, they actually might be creative if they did it right away, because there's going to be no fans in the ballpark in 2020. Where are the fan boycotts? Doesn't happen. 2021, limited attendance. Even if Coors Field is at 50% capacity, they are not going to have a hard time selling out at 24,000, because people just want to get outside. They don't care what for. Even if you're not a baseball fan, if you can go to a live event, you're going to go to it. So I don't think the Rockies will even really feel the financial ramifications all that much from this deal this year. And depending on what next year looks like, so they could have gotten away with it even more so had they made the move last year. Consider the Boston Red Sox. They got lucky a little bit in trading Betts before the pandemic, but eventually they went all in on a short-term tank. Now they got the second overall pick after a 2020 season that everybody can agree, well, who really cares about it? It was only 60 games. Now they got a second overall pick and they're ready to reload all over again.
Olivia Kyler has a question.
Olivia, where are you?
Hey, everybody. So I'm about to say something that I did not get from Paul Parker. Okay, so, but when I moved here 11 years ago, like someone else mentioned, Greg said he was a Cubs fan, and I came here from North Carolina and I was a Braves fan. And I had deep connections in Major League Baseball, and I will say the word on the street was that the Montforts definitely are running a business, a family-owned business. that will be passed down. And my expectations have never been that great as far as being number one priority, getting a winning team. And from the fan view and not a baseball view, it's like, okay, you've got Todd Helton, that's the anchor. Cargo, that's the anchor. Nolan, there's another anchor. And an anchor meaning if we've got the turnstile, we're okay. And that's, and it's a great ballpark, and somebody mentioned something about the rock pile, and that's fantastic. And so the experience is really great for the baseball fan that's going to come in regardless and watch other winning teams. And so that, for you guys that have been there from the very beginning, I understand. But that's always been like, that's the way it is. That's the Rockies. Then that's the reputation they have. That and the fact that, and Paul did not tell me this, and I wouldn't say who did, but I can't remember, is that they required them to listen to Christian music. They even, imposed a value upon their players, going on road trips and things like, that was very conservative in the locker room when in the beginning of the team.
You
So,
definitely did not get that from me.
yeah. No, I didn't meet you until this. So I'm definitely disappointed, but it just seems like, as many people have said, very consistent.
Thank you, Olivia. We now have a question, or John Paul wishes to speak.
JP. Go for the unmute, John.
I've asked him to unmute.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Sorry for the delay, folks. One thing that hasn't been brought up is, and I've read it in a couple of places, and I can't remember exactly where, but the Rockies didn't do a very good job with their TV contract. And my understanding is it's gonna, not only will the ticket sales suffer and hurt them, but so will the TV contract. Does that sound right? Anybody else want to confirm that?
I think that sounds right, John. I know they don't have the revenue at the level of the Dodgers or the Yankees or the Red Sox, and I think from what I heard, the negotiations did not go well. But I don't know the details. Maybe someone else does if they want to raise their hand.
Well, one further comment is I worked for him part-time 20 years, not quite as long as Herb. Herb's got me beat, but I can tell you that the whole time I worked for him in event services, the comments always were, we run this club as a business, first of all, and always. Heard that year after year after year.
Makes sense.
Thanks for letting me talk.
No, you're welcome. Good to hear from you, John. Paul, that takes care of the hand raises. We have a lot of, looks like, chat going on. What I recommend, we can unmute everybody and just go through the chat room and see if there's questions and see if someone wants to chime in.
Okay, we'll see how that goes.
Sure. So I'm asking all to unmute. And I'll go through the chat box right now. So the first question is, it's at the top. Does someone want to speak to maybe what the starting lineup will look like as of today after the Nolan trade?
I think MLB.com projected. So, I mean, I don't know what Buddy's going to do with the lineup. I mean, you're going to build it around Trevor Story. Do you want him batting second or do you want him batting third? It's going to be one of those two, with Blackman obviously hitting behind him. But I think on MLB.com, when they were ranking the top lineups, which the Rockies were the 30th, they had Raimel Tapia in left field. At second base, Brendan Rodgers. Might be a little early to have the youngster batting second, but Trevor Story batting third, Charlie Blackman in right field batting fourth, Ryan McMahon at third base, Josh Fuentes at first base, batting 6th. And then center field, I guess probably Sam Hilliard, catcher, Elias Diaz, and then pitcher.
Thank you, Patrick. We have a question from Matt Klaus. Wants to know from Brian, I think that was Brian Werner when he, gentleman who first spoke when we logged in, if his account still had the 10% bonus we were told we would get if we left last year's dollars with the Rockies.
Yeah, and I do not know the answer to that, but I'm going to ask when and if I call them back.
Thank you, Brian. Some more comments. Matt Klaus also asked, Pat said the Rockies will pay Nolan's contract $35 million this year. Can that be true? I think we talked about this, but Patrick, you want to verify?
Yeah, so the details are they're giving him $15 million right off the bat right now. And then I guess they're going to pay the next $20 million. I guess they send the check to the Cardinals, and then the Cardinals send the check to Arenado. I don't know the details on that. So I guess they're really saving, I guess technically they're saving $20 million this year, but they're going to have to pay it, down the line. Hopefully this doesn't become like a Bobby Bonilla day situation, where it's July 1st of every year. For the next 20 years, they'll be paying Nolan Arenado $1 million, something like that. So yeah, it'll be $15 million probably they get right now. The 20 will be paid future payments down the line over how many years, don't know. And then an additional $16 million, which essentially covers that last year that's now added on to Arenado's deal. So he right now is signed for the Cardinals for 7 years at $215 million. Which I think altogether now makes Arenado's deal something like 9 years, $275 million, something like that all told. So it makes it, I think, like tied for the 4th largest contract given to a player ever.
Rockies have been involved in some wacky deals. If you recall back when Mike Hampton's time was, when he wore out his welcome in Denver, I think the Houston Astros ended up paying, it was the Florida Marlins who ended up,
Atlanta?
No, it was the Florida Marlins. It was a 3-team deal, and the Florida Marlins ended up paying Mike Hampton $3 million, never threw a pitch for them. And then, of course, my personal favorite, Jose Reyes, who Rockies paid Jose Reyes $22 million one year to play for the Mets.
Has anyone heard the true answer on why Bridich offered Arenado and his agent an opt-out that they didn't even ask for?
Well, that may be right in line with Ian Desmond said, hey, they're bidding against themselves. What are they doing?
I think their hope was maybe to get him to opt out. I think they were like, well, look, we can get all the credit if we lock him up to a long-term deal, so no one can say we're not doing that. And we almost have to do that. So, okay, let's do that. But let's build in this trap door that allows, him to maybe be the bad guy and opt out and go back into free agency. And everybody kind of gets what they want out of the situation, because Nolan wasn't even asking for it. And this is a big piece and a big element as to why they didn't get back very much, and why the Cardinals knew that the Rockies just needed to get that money off the books. Awful.
I bet Arenado was very, very thankful that they offered him that opt-out. Right.
Bob Nightingale is reporting that the Cardinals are going to pick up Fowler's entire salary, $14 million.
By the way, everybody's raving about the San Diego Padres. The Dodgers and the Padres now own the division. Well, look for the Padres to underperform this year. Why do I say that? Because they always do.
The Dodgers or the Giants also have a young up and coming team.
Yeah.
Once they dump some salary coming up, but
$106 million coming off the books after this year. So Trevor Story, if he doesn't want to go back to Texas to be their new shortstop, maybe he stays in the division with the Giants. That be awful.
Just another player on another team, Patrick. We have a question from Diane Summers asking, could someone address what's going on with the pitchers and bullpen? Who's staying, who's leaving? Manny or Patrick, or you guys have any?
I feel like I'm doing too much talking. Yeah, the rotation, the top 4 guys are set. Herman Marquez, Kyle Freeland, John Gray, Antonio Senzatella. The 5th spot will probably be a battle, although I think Austin Gomber, one of the new guys they just got from the Cardinals, will probably have the best odds. He is a fly ball prone pitcher, unfortunately, but he's a lefty. He's got reverse splits, so he doesn't actually get lefties out. So I don't know how good he would be, in the bullpen, but he'll probably get the first stab at the 5th starter spot, battling with Castellani, Chichi Gonzalez again. And then Derek Rodriguez was a non-roster invite, from San Francisco we saw recently. The bullpen actually might be pretty competent. Whether it's Daniel Bard or Scott Oberg in the 8th and 9th, he's flipped their order or whatever, is all right. They did acquire Robert Stevenson in the Jeff Hoffman trade. So Robert Stevenson could do some big things. He still has a few more years of control. Michael Givens is back. He did not pitch very well after being acquired at the trade deadline last year, but they're paying him $4 million. They decided to keep him over David Dahl.
And Patrick, don't forget my favorite, Yancy Almonte.
Yancy Almonte had a great year last year, so he's promising. Carlos Estevez and Jairo Diaz, I think they were running until their arms fell off in 2019. So I think they were struggling to give anything last year, but they still have some potential. And Brian Gonzalez was a guy, another non-roster invite, left-hander. They also got Yohan Ibar from the Boston Red Sox. They didn't give up a lot to get him. He's on the 40-man roster. And then they also have 2 other lefties that haven't pitched above, I think, A-ball. A lot of that has to do with there not being a minor league season last year, but Lucas Gilbreth and Helcris Olivares, who's very young. He's pitched for 2 months in America in 2019 with the Grand Junction Rockies, but they said, if we don't put this guy in the 40-man, somebody else is going to poach this guy in the Rule 5 draft. So they had to do what they had to do. So there's some interesting arms. There still might not be enough to get them through a full season, but the ones that they do have so far, they might even be able to have a little bit of a battle instead of saying, well, we have to have McGee in the bullpen and we have to have Shaw. Now there could be a little bit of battles. And then finally, Rule 5 pick, Jordan Sheffield from the
Dodgers,
Los Angeles Dodgers. Yeah, he came out of Vanderbilt. So former starter. I think he's now more of a reliever type now. So they've got some arms. Could be something.
And Patrick, just that gentleman you spoke of that came over from the Caribbean, Alacruz, is that his name?
Chris Olivares.
Chris Olivares, thank you. Just to give the group some idea of how talented he really is. Probably never heard of him. This guy's coming over from the Caribbean League, their Latin America country, Dominican Republic. It's gonna be stateside this year. He's around the top 10. They chose to protect him in that Rule 5 draft that Patrick just talked about, so no team would grab him over a former number 1 pick, Riley Pint. So that just shows how talented this team is. I believe that granted it's a years away, but they've got some talent down there. We have a question from Olivia.
Kurt raised his hand.
Sorry?
Kurt.
Oh, Kurt. Great. Thank you, Kurt.
I was going to say one other pitcher that's intriguing to me, and I'd like anybody else's take that they might know something I'm missing, but we also signed Pudge Rodriguez's son, Derek, and he was really good when he came up and then kind of fell off. And I'm wondering, has he had arm problems that anybody's aware of, or what's the story with him falling the way he has? But there's a guy that might be somebody that could make the roster as well.
Was he the guy that was picked by the Giants in the Rule 5 draft?
Well, the Giants is who he's pitched for several years. Yeah. And we took him from them. We signed him to a minor league deal this year. But I'm just wondering why he's fallen off so far, because he shut down the Rockies at least once, if not a couple of times.
Well, I know there was a Rodriguez a couple of years ago that the Giants selected from the Rockies, really young.
No.
I don't know if it was Pudge's son, but they selected him. He tore his arm up, had Tommy John surgery. I mean, there's a kid throwing 100+ in low A. So I mean,
Julian Fernandez, and because of his arm issues, he still was like technically a Rule 5 draft pick even as of last year, like 2 years after, because they kept rostering and then they finally gave him back. So he's actually back with the Rockies.
sorry, sorry, I mixed him up. The answer is Kurt.
Yeah, and Kurt was talking about Pudge's kid. I remember when Pudge was pitching against us, Pudge was in Coors Field in Denver, and the TV broadcast kept showing Pudge watching his kid pitch. So against us,
He'll be battling for a spot in the rotation. He could be the long man in the bullpen potentially. I don't know that he's had any arm issues. It's just, yeah.
We have a question from Shannon Blair. Do you think all these debacles will affect any player wanting to come and sign with the Rockies? She believes it does, but she wants to know the opinion of the group.
Group?
Outside of the school systems in Denver, I don't know why any free agent would really want to play here. And the Rockies are at a major disadvantage when it comes to pitchers, because think about it. If the Dodgers come knocking on your door and they say, look, we'll sign you to a non-roster deal so you can pitch at AAA. You go, oh yeah, man, if somebody gets hurt, boom, I'm up on the Dodgers. I can maybe win a World Series. I'll take my chances with that. I like that. Even if they have the opportunity to, have something guaranteed with the Rockies, that could hurt their value drastically for the next year. So it's kind of, the Rockies are at a major disadvantage. No player would ever or should ever want to sign a 1-year deal with the Rockies. It's unfortunate.
The days of Kyle Kendricks are long gone.
Oh dear God.
Opening day starter, Kyle Kendrick.
You got to give him props though. He pitched through pain. His shoulder was shredded that year he was here.
He pitched eight and a third inning after his career at the Rockies. He didn't pitch in 2016, and he made 2 outings with Boston 2 years later. He's done.
As you guys mentioned, the pitching doesn't look that bad this year. I'm wondering how we got in a situation where you're in Coors Field with the Rockies, where some people are projecting the WAR of the Rockies lineup to be the worst in baseball. How could our hitting have fallen so far? And a lot of it is this launch angle, because guys like Hilliard and McMahon, their strikeout ratio is incredible.
The 3 total outcomes. I think a lot of players have fallen victim to it. We have a hand raised from Olivia. You're unmuted.
Okay. Diane, that was a great question. So I love the conversation afterwards. And since we're recorded, I want to take back the Christian comment that I made. I was confusing myself with another team, but I did definitely hear that it was very conservatively run. So I will stick with that. Also wanted to see if anybody out there, Manny, Patrick, anybody has stats on our home, how often we win at home, because the visual here, it's such a great experience when you go to the Rockies and there are all those home runs. It is, it's a fun ballpark. And so it goes back to my other point of, hey, we've got a great fan experience. So does anybody out there have those stats on our consistent winning percentage and at home, and what if any percentage greater is that than other teams?
Well, yeah, that's both of those. 2 things. One, on the winning percentage at home. I'm going to say, looking forward, because the Rockies don't win on the road, and it's not really personnel. It's the coming down from altitude, seeing a breaking ball for the first time in a week, and then by the time you're used to it, going back home. Every team, without exception, of the 27 Rockies teams has been poor on the road, and so it's not it's not personnel. You've had Todd Helton, you've had the Blake Street Bombers, you've had Cargo, you've had Arenado. They don't win on the road because they can't hit on the road because course hangover. And so what that means is you got to win at home. You got to win 55 games at home every year. If you don't do that, you're not going to compete for the postseason. And the fact that the Rockies don't seem to put a big emphasis on bringing in hitters here from the outside, and guys like McMahon have shown flashes, and guys like Rogers haven't really, been able to show much so far. If you're counting on guys from your farm system, how many of those pan out on average? I think McMahon probably will be the best out of the group, but remains to be seen. If Coors Field is your home, I've always been saying Coors Field is your home, calling card should be hitting. Yes, you need pitching, and it's great that you have the best young core of starters that you probably ever had. But you got to hit, and you've got to take it. If your home ballpark is Colorado, Dante Bichette, he said, we would have the Bombers be last in the batting practice groups. We would be last because that's when the pitchers and the other team stretched. So there's this chip on your shoulder. There's this confidence. The Rockies play like they're scared of Coors rather than embracing Coors Field. It's like the Giants in the late 80s. Candlestick was an awful place to play baseball, and the Giants didn't like it any more than opposing teams, but they pretended like they did. And Roger Craig, the manager back then, told that club, he said, I'm going to find anybody who says a bad word about Candlestick Park. And so it's that attitude, it's that way of doing things that, your calling card in Denver should be you mash, you hit. And if you have a good young core of pitching like you do, that's going to take care of that. You need to pitch, especially on the road, to give yourself a chance there, but you got to win at home. Secondly, when free agent hitters start to figure out the Coors hangover thing, if they haven't already, we always talked about how it's hard to get pitchers to come here. It's going to be hard to get hitters to come here because it's no surprise DJ LeMahieu is doing what he's doing. Nolan Arenado is going to be an absolute monster now if he stays healthy. He's going to be in the MVP conversation. He's already been in the MVP conversation perennially, but now he's going to get to, first, second, third, a finalist for the MVP award year after year because he's still 29. He's not going to have to deal with the Coors hangover now. As good as he was here, think about not having to deal with all that. And also not having the weight of the entire club on your shoulders. Because if you don't produce, your lineup's you, Trevor Story, and Charlie Blackmon, all guys who take losing hard. And if you put all the pressure on those guys, it's going to be a problem. And it has been a problem. People talk about how the Rockies are a great hitting team. They're not. They haven't been for a long time. And so when hitters start to, it's just more bad news. But when hitters start to figure out, boy, if I go to Colorado and my road numbers tank, when I get my next, when I'm a free agent again, if I am going to be, I'm going to have to explain away those numbers on the road. I'm going to have to deal with all this stuff. So it's just, you got to give whoever is trying to figure out how to win here credit because it's tough. They haven't figured it out yet. One day when they do, send that blueprint to Cooperstown and give it its own exhibit because it will be an incredible feat. So I'm kind of curious. If I could choose anybody, I'd like to see Theo Epstein come here and see what he could do with this team.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought about that too, but he just signed on with.
He's with Major League Baseball now.
MLB, yeah.
Well, he's done it for they should have a wing in the Hall of Fame for that guy. He's done it with the Red Sox. He's done it with the Cubs. The Rockies, maybe he's young. Maybe he'll end up thinking, that'd be a fun challenge. Let's see what I can do there.
Amen.
I'll take any member of the Tampa Bay Rays front office for now.
Yeah, the Rockies have spent, I think, I can't remember the exact number, and I don't want to try to put a number, but a vast sum more than the Rays, and have lost, I think, 25 or 30 more games over the last 3 years won 25 or 30 more games last 3 years than the Rockies. And obviously they were in the World Series last year, short season, but the Rockies don't seem to like to emulate You know, you can't be the Rays, but you can look at what they do. You can't be the Dodgers, but you can look at what they do. You can have more than one person in the analytics department, which I think they're down to one. The Dodgers, I think, have 25 or 26. You got to get with you can't be in 1985 anymore. You know, you got to be in 2021. And the Rockies, you know, people talk about how they've become the joke of Major League Baseball. It's because of stuff like that. They've already been in that conversation. Other executives have told guys like Ken Rosenthal that the Rockies overvalue their players. They don't understand how to value guys. And now with this fiasco with the Arenado deal, it's just blowing up on social media. Obviously, it's blowing up everywhere. Now the Rockies were trending on Twitter in the United States, #1 when this trade happened. And then they were #1 or number 10 the next day afterwards in the US, because what in the world are they doing there in Denver? So that's I'm going to stop now because I feel like I'm going to cause you guys to all go on Prozac or something.
I'll continue. Yeah, we heard the Dodgers have 35 guys in analytics. And you go, well, they're the Dodgers. They got all that money. But Padres, Giants, Diamondbacks, 25 guys in their analytics. One.
And the A's and the Twins.
Well, it should be a very interesting when we do our annual guess the number of Rockies wins this year. That should be a very interesting contest. Is this the year in year 29 of the Rockies that they finally lose 100? They've never lost 100 games.
If they play a full season, yes.
A claim that cannot be made by the New York Yankees or the Boston Red Sox. The Rockies have never lost 100 games.
If the Angels ever lost 100, because it was just the Rockies and the Angels before. Have they lost 100 in the last 5 or 10 years?
The Angels?
Yeah, we were the only two teams that have never lost 100.
I don't think so. No.
I don't think they have either.
Has any other team never won their division in history?
Yeah, the Marlins and their 2 World Series.
Oh, they were wild cards?
Yeah. No, the Angels have not lost 100 games yet.
If the Rockies play 162 games this year, yes, the Rockies will probably lose 100 plus this year.
Well, how about if we only play 60 this year? They got no shot at 100 losses, right? Well,
They could lose 60.
They could lose 60. Oh boy. Okay, we have any more questions or comments here?
One last one. I heard a national radio show today. Someone called in and said, from a PR perspective, if the Rockies would have just gone to Arenado last week and said, hey, you want out, we're going to allow you to take your opt-out right now and call his bluff. And then if he did leave, then I think Arenado would have got a lot more heat than the team. I doubt he would have, given the financial market out there now. I think he would have said, no, I'm not going to leave 190 million or whatever it is on the table. I think
Is that even doable?
Interesting strategy.
No.
That's a contractual obligation. I'm not sure he would even have that. I don't think the Rockies would just, who would get up in arms? The players union.
Yeah, that's what they said. The players union would probably shoot it down.
Yeah.
But from a PR perspective, they couldn't have handled this worse. I mean, take them to the trading deadline, get a bigger haul, say we're going to try to compete at least until we're out of it in June.
You are absolutely right.
Dale Peterson would like to speak.
Dale Peterson. Okay, where's Dale Peterson?
I have just a comment. What we can do with Bridich. We better send him to the Dodgers, and then that'll equal them out. He'll mess that team up something fierce also.
That's a great move.
But why would he want to do that? He's got a job for life here in Denver. And
So we have another question
43.
from Shannon Blair. This is for the group. As of today, is spring training still on for February? She says 27th, but I believe I believe spring training is earlier than that, the start of it. And then regular season. She says May 1st, but I believe from what I've seen that since the last proposal to delay the season from the players union, from Major League Baseball was rejected by the player union, everything defaults to what originally scheduled, correct, group?
Yep.
Yeah, pitchers and catchers report on the 17th as of right now.
Yep.
And opening day is still April 1, right?
April Fool's Day
As of now.
against the
And
Dodgers.
and the Rockies are selling spring trading tickets. They posted them earlier this week. So,
Whoa.
But we still haven't heard whether Arizona is going to let all that happen.
well, that's the thing.
I'd call their bluff and tell them they're moving all the teams to Florida.
Florida's even having the same problem.
Maybe, maybe if Arizona puts up a big wall, maybe the baseball threatens them with Jewish space lasers. I don't know.
Well, no, baseball, MLB wants it to be delayed. So MLB and the state of Arizona and the mayors and all that, they're on the same team, same thing as the government. Cause I think there was supposed to be a call between the Players Association and some members of the government. And they said, yeah, well, we're going to talk to you next week. Don't worry. Like they're going to get pressured into doing it. So I was talking to Paul a week or two ago about, look, if the owners want less games, financially, and again, they were going to pay $100 for a 162 game season for only 154 games. It's not a lot, but nevertheless, if the owners, don't get what they want, they'll take it out of the 2022 season, because when the CBA ends, they'll just wait, to negotiate something so it benefits them next year. It's kind of like what happened when the pandemic began, and it was like, okay, when are we gonna have baseball up? They're going back and forth, and then the owners basically, they got the deal that they wanted. They started on July 23rd, which is essentially what they had been saying for 2 months. So they got what they wanted. So the owners were still going to get what they want. Players just have to decide, what that's going to look like, how they're going to negotiate it and whatever. So it's going to be ugly.
That indeed.
Going to be, ugly before it gets pretty again. You know what? I kind of miss baseball. I really do. I just want to watch a game. I really. I have a quick announcement, a couple of announcements. I got a call from Rayleigh Fraser over. She wanted to give them a plug over at Bruce Hellerstein's National Baseball Museum at 1940 Blake Street. Go to check out their website. They're kind of open on a sporadic basis now, but do try to support them when you're able to. That's National Ballpark Museum on half a block from Coors Field. So just want to put that plug in. And our regular, we can keep going, I think, for a while, but our regular monthly Zoom call will be on Wednesday, February 17th at noon. And we will have a guest, an author who's putting out a book. His name is Dan Taylor. He's been, you will see an announcement about this shortly from our esteemed secretary, Mr. Marks. But it was broadcasted with the Fresno AAA team for many, many years. And so look for that. We hope to see, I'm not ending this necessarily, but just want to get those couple of announcements out. So anybody else want to jump in?
The Rockies are sending more money to the St. Louis Cardinals in the Arenado trade than they've spent in free agency in the last 3 off seasons.
Combined. Ouch.
Olivia, you raised your hand.
Did anybody participate in the SABR event? Wasn't that last Saturday?
It was.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that was great.
Very good.
Bob
Bob Costas was fabulous.
And if you have a chance, the SABR Analytics Conference is still going on this year. It's just going to be online. So go to the SABR website for registration information. It's still going to be a great show.
Can you view the Sabre Day stuff? I imagine they recorded all that. Can you go to the site and watch all of it?
They
More-
said they have posted it on the SABR website under the SABR Day page.
Yeah, so everybody go and watch that, see what we watched.
By the way, if you didn't catch it, Tim Mead was the first guest on that. And he's the president of of Cooperstown, of the Hall of Fame. And he was asked several times about the induction ceremony that was postponed last summer, including Larry Walker and Marvin Miller and
Ted Simmons, Derek Jeter.
some guy from the Yankees, I can't remember his name, and then Ted Simmons and
Billy Martin, Paul.
Billy Martin. There we go. And,
Sternweiss.
and Mr. Mead said yes, and he was quite emphatic. Yes, there will be an induction ceremony in Cooperstown on July 25th. But as far as the situation with spectators there, he did not know, and he was monitoring the situation. I think all these sporting events are watching each other. You know, everything from the Kentucky Derby to the Indianapolis 500 to the Tokyo Olympic Games to the Masters, and you know all the major American sports. They're all kind of seeing how this plays out as the vaccine gets out there and protocols continue to unfold. You know, it's constantly changing situation. But he said July 25th, there will be, Larry Walker will go into the Hall of Fame as the first Rocky in the Hall of Fame. So.
We have John Paul wants to speak.
JP.
Go ahead, John.
You're on.
Hey, Kurt Wells, I just looked up Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Rodriguez was DFA'd by the Giants.
But the Rockies signed him then to a minor league deal, right?
Well, what happened was Kapler said that he was pitching inconsistently, and his ERA when they released him was like 13.5 or 14, and he was picked up by the Tigers, but he never played for the Tigers, and the Rockies then signed him at the end of the season after he was released by the Tigers, I guess. Thomas Harding wrote an article about it, so you can look that. You can look that up. I couldn't find anything where he was injured, but just he was having trouble.
He was good when he first came up. It'd be nice to see a comeback out of him.
It would. It sure
Appreciate
would.
it, John. And appreciate the information.
There's another name that also signed a non-roster invite way back in November, I think. Former Rockies prospect, so I have a feeling Diane might remember this guy, Jose Briseño. Does this name sound familiar? Okay, maybe not. He was in the organization for a little while, and I think he might have made it up to AAA and made his major league debut with the Angels. But Jose Briseño, so
the catcher, right?
Yeah. So he could be the third string guy at this point if they're tired of Chris Rabago and Brian Serban.
Is Tony still out there? Is he still a free agent?
Tony Walters still a free agent. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gerardo Parra came back to America, signed a 1-year, $1 million deal back again with the Washington Nationals.
Really?
Yes.
Today. Shannon Blair is asking the group if anyone's going to Cooperstown for the Hall of Fame this year. I think you're going, right, Paul?
Well, I sent a guy, I found a place to stay within walking distance of the hall. And I sent a guy, it was an acquaintance of an acquaintance, and I sent him $175. And when it was postponed, he contacted me and said, you want your money back, or you want to hold on to it for next year? And I said, I'll hold on to it for next year. So depending on what the hall figures out, if they're going to do it, I'm going to try to get up there. Absolutely. I've never been to an induction, so I'm it's on my bucket list. And but if they're not going to have spectators, then I probably won't go. So anybody else planning to go up there for Larry?
No.
No, okay. So we,
Is anyone going on to spring training? How about that? Oh, Chris Moyer.
Kurt Wells.
You should be unmuted already, Chris. Oh, no, you're not. Okay.
Yeah,
Chris-
I am unmuted. Yeah, I'm going to be there the week of March 21st through the 27th.
You're a good man, Mr. Wells.
Never miss it, except last year.
Chris Moyer, you'd like to say something?
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking about it. Because I know that the Sabre event last year was the National Sabre event was the weekend beforehand. So if that national event in Baltimore is still on, maybe tying the two together, still mulling that over if that possibility happens with the national convention. Going to the Hall of Fame, and then going to the Hall of Fame after the following week.
Manny says he'll be going to the Cooperstown, so I think Larry will want to have you side by side, right, Manny? He said he's going to give him some advice in the speech.
Nice.
I'll just want to say something to the group. I don't know if someone saw this this week, but I saw a news article about Yogi Berra's granddaughter was like watching a game or something with Yogi, and she told him they started doing the instant replay on a call, and she said, and he was all confused, like, how can they do that? He's like, oh yeah, no, Grandpa, they can do instant replay now. And he looked at her and said, so if we had replay back in the World Series against the Dodgers, Robinson would have been out, right?
That's great. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
You know, at a convention, I think it was in Pittsburgh a few years back, at the registration table at the national convention, there was a young lady working there. They always hire local youthful help. And she had this enormous ring on her finger, a World Series ring. And I said, that's a beautiful ring. And she said, oh yeah, I got it from my grandfather. And I said, oh really? Who's your grandfather? And she said, Whitey Ford.
Greg and I spent some time at a little party at that Pittsburgh event with her, and she looked just like Whitey, didn't she?
Yeah.
Just a spitting image of him.
Yeah, she worked Sabre events out of New York. Yep.
We've lost a lot of Hall of Famers in the last 12 months. I think
10 of them in 9 months.
10 in 9 months.
Yes.
And for you old timers,
it was
Wayne
6 last
Terwilliger.
year. It was 6 last year, and then we lost 3 more this year, right? It was Lasorda early, Don Sutton, and
Kalen, or no, not this year.
Lou
It was Hank
Brower.
Aaron this year.
and Hank Aaron. There we go. So we had 3 this year, 6 last year. And Dick
Kurt-
Allen, who he'll eventually get in at some point. He just missed.
Kurt Sinclair would like to say something.
Hey, did anybody ever have the opportunity to meet Henry Aaron?
I did. I met him at work in the front office. Paul Egan's is the longtime traveling secretary or director of team travel for the Rockies. And Paul's been there since 1991. He's one of the first hires of the Rockies when they were awarded the franchise. And Paul started out with the Atlanta Braves right out of college. And Paul is an African-American, and Hank Aaron took him under his wing and guided him in his early years till he got on it with the expansion team in Denver. And I had to go up to Paul's office for something. And I went up there and he has a very small office, and I come in and Hank Aaron is standing there, and I'm introduced to Hank Aaron, and I said, it's an honor. I was flabbergasted, but I didn't have time to get nervous or anything. It was just boom like that. So I did have a chance to meet him and shake his hand.
Very cool.
I was at a 3,000 hit show where all the living members of that had 3,000 hits were there and purchased his autograph. And then he ran out of time and he had to fly to, I think it was Atlanta, to throw out the first pitch for the World Series that year in '99. So missed it by that much, and paths never crossed again.
I met Whitey Ford in the minors.
When he was in the minors, or you in the minors?
When I was, yeah, when I was in the minors. And Tommy John was, Catfish Hunter was there. Cool.
See this hand? Mickey Mantle shook this hand. At Mickey Mantle night, West Haven Yankees, 1973. So I didn't actually speak to him. I just shook his hand. But it was the Mick. So made my day. Okay. Does anybody else have anything for the good of the order here? Well, it has been most intriguing. And thank you all for those who joined us and for those who contributed their thoughts and their opinions. Diane, don't be afraid, but there's some kind of wild animal behind you right now. So, yeah. But it's going to be an unusual 2021, just like it was an unusual 2020. And I guess we'll put a wrap on this and hope to see you all on February 17th virtually. And who knows, maybe we'll see you at the ballpark at some point. But
Stay safe, folks.
Okay. Thank you all so very much, and take care and be well. All right.
Thanks.
See y'all later.
It's a wrap, baby.
Toodaloo.